My name is Colette Kemp, and I am here today with Mimi Mythen. Mimi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing good. So we are going to be doing an interview. Have the pleasure of interviewing Mimi for the IFDF's professional blog series. To get started, Mimi, just wanted to ask you a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what attracted you, what brought you to this profession.
Yeah, so I have been in Florida for the past 7 or 8 years now, but growing up, I lived all over the place because my dad was in the Navy, so we moved quite a lot. But we've predominantly been in Florida for the last few years. So I'm in Jacksonville now. And what really piqued my interest in the death care field was learning about natural burials and ways to give back to the environment when you pass away. And my mom actually came home from work one day and she was like, Mimi, this is really weird, but I listened to this TED talk by a woman named Caitlin Doughty, and she talked about burial practices that nourish the environment and nourish the planet. And she was like, I don't know why, but it reminded me of you. And this was way before I'd ever had any interest in this field before. And I was like, okay, that's kind of weird, but all right. So then I listened to the TED talk and I was like, okay, wow, this is very, very cool. And I did more research and I started to fall in love with green burials and natural burials.
So how old were you then?
I was still in high school. I think I was about 17. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And then at what point did you make the decision to go to mortuary school? How did that come about?
Yeah, it was around that time I had just stopped dancing. I was a dancer my entire life. So I was kind of at a crossroads where I didn't really know what I wanted to do and I didn't know what I wanted to go to school for after high school. And I remember after my mom mentioned that TED Talk, I took one of those little tests that's tells you what you should major in college or what areas you should focus on that like every high school senior takes if they don't know what they want to do. And weirdly enough, I think my top choice was psychology and my second choice was mortuary science. And I was like, what the heck? I've never even heard of this before. What are the odds that I got this? Like right after my mom was telling me about this TED Talk. And I was like, okay, that's crazy. So then I researched mortuary schools in my area and what that looked like and the prerequisites to get into them. And luckily enough, there was a program at the college that my mom works at. So my mom was like, well, you get free tuition since I work there. So if you really hate it, it's not gonna like damage you that much. And it's a very short program. So I was like, all right. So I did dual enrollment and I took the prereqs that I needed and I applied to the program and I started it and I was like, all right, here we go. And then I fell in love with it and I just kept falling deeper and deeper in love with like every aspect about our work and our job. So it worked out well.
Oh, wow. That's really amazing. And so that brings us nicely into my next question, which from dancing and being interested in probably some sort of entertainment or creativity, I hear that you are doing some pretty interesting things on social media, specifically TikTok. So could you share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, so when I was in mortuary school, I downloaded TikTok during quarantine, during the pandemic, like I feel like everybody else did, and was just on it just to have fun and watch funny videos to pass the time. And then when I started mortuary school, I kind of felt like there wasn't a lot of representation of funeral directors or embalmers or anyone in our profession, really. There was a couple people, but I felt like they were all very old or established and there was really no one that I could fully relate to and just a handful of people really. So I was like, you know what, let me just start making videos. So I started making day in the life videos or come to lab with me and like get ready with me to go embalm a body and just like very like nonchalantly introducing that into very casual content. And people started to pick up on that and they were like, wait, I'm sorry, what, like what are you doing? And then they found it super interesting and it's kind of just spiraled from there. But I really like my target audience is definitely like younger generations and younger people that are interested in going to mortuary school or that are in mortuary school now. And I get a majority of my questions are, how did you come about this? Like, what do I need to do to get where you are? What courses did you take? How did you apply for your programs? Where did you find schools and things like that? So it's very targeted to students, which I love because I'm not going about saying, I'm a professional, like I can educate you. I'm just like sharing my journey and my
Sharing.
experience with people. And I really think that they enjoy that and enjoy getting like a peek into what it's like and what the journey looks like.
That's pretty amazing. How did it gain traction? How many people were interested? Did you get a lot of followers?
So I was making videos while I was in school, and then I started recording videos when I was working on my restorative art project, which we had to build an entire head out of wax. So I would just like prop my phone up and like film that process. And that kind of gained traction by like news and media. So I started getting featured in more like articles and links and videos and things like that. And that really just like grew my audience from there.
And so do you still make videos now? Is it ongoing for you?
Yeah, I do still make videos, super casual. Like I kind of try to mix and mingle just like the life of a 20-year-old, but also intermingling death care in that, which can be kind of difficult because then I think like death care professionals are like, she's just messing around, like she's not doing anything. But people actually, like I've had my followers be like, no, I actually like that you don't only specifically post death related content because it makes it feel more authentic and more like casual in a sense and like easier to digest, and it's less like, I don't know, in your face, I guess. So I do still like make videos and answer questions. The questions just never end. I thought it would get to a point where like every question would be answered that people would have, but it never ends and they all kind of stump me. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, wow, that's a really great question. Like I gotta go ask somebody else because I don't know.
So what's a question that absolutely stumped you?
I think sometimes people will ask, can I get cremated with popcorn? Can I get cremated with a bottle of alcohol or something like that? Like just little things like that where I'm like, I actually don't know. Like, can you? So I'll go and ask some of my like mutuals and some other people that I've worked with and be like, okay, what do you think about this? But it's kind of fun.
So it's interesting though that people are curious about what they can do, right? Like, what, because so much of the profession is very closed in the sense of people don't learn about it until it's a difficult time. So you're actually bringing it to the forefront in a very unique way. And I would think that's why, especially younger people are very curious. So do you think that's why you've had so much response?
Yeah, I think so. And like you said, I definitely think it's important for people to normalize death and normalize death care and talking about it because it's so much easier if you talk about it in a more gentle manner prior to sitting in an arrangement room planning someone you love, like planning their services. It's much easier to plan ahead and talk about it and just make it part of casual conversation and say, hey, like, what do you want to do when you die? Like, do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be scattered? Where do you want to be scattered? Because there's so many options. And by the time you're planning services for someone that you love that's just recently passed, your mind is not thinking clearly and it gets overwhelmed very easily. And I feel like oftentimes I've noticed that people plan services that aren't as personal or don't really reflect the person that they love as much that they would have if that person would have planned ahead or talked about what maybe they would have wanted prior to their passing. So I definitely think it's important to just incorporate death care into your daily lives and talking about it and casually talking about it and asking your friends and family what they want to do, and not in a creepy, morbid way, but in like a genuinely curious way.
And I love the word gentle that you used, just so that it's a gentle way to approach it. Now, have you had all these discussions with your family? Has this opened up a lot of dialogue between you because you're in this profession?
Yes, definitely with my family and friends, for sure. I've tried to get them more comfortable with the idea of like planning their services and but like going beyond just getting pre-need and those arrangements out of the way, but really like the nitty gritty, like what music do you want? Do you want a live band? Like my dad's a musician. I know he would want music incorporated. Do you want jazz? Do you want classical? Like things like that. I really try to push my family to talk about that and think about that because I think it's important to do, but they have not responded badly so far. So I'm going to keep like pushing their buttons about it.
Makes for a good dinner conversation. But that's really good, though, that it's really good that you're opening people up to the idea beyond just pre-planning. Actually, what would that look like? Because so many of us, just in our regular life, we don't think about it, do we? We just go about our daily business.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've been very actively involved with the IFDF, correct?
Yes.
And how has that experience been for you, and what prompted you to get involved?
Yeah, I first joined IFDF as a student member when I was enrolled in mortuary school. Our program director told his class, he told us, oh, by the way, there's this association called IFDF that works with independent funeral directors and firms in Florida, and they're having a regional dinner in Jacksonville if any of you guys want to sign up. I was like, okay, I'll do it. Like, I'll go. So I signed up and I was a student member and I went to the dinner, not really knowing what to expect. I mean, I didn't come from a family that owned a funeral home or anything like that. So I felt like sort of out of it and isolated in that kind of sense. But after I went to the dinner, I was like, oh my gosh, everybody was so kind and welcoming. And it was a really amazing opportunity to get to network with people, especially while I was still in school. That was a really big benefit, to network with funeral directors and funeral homes in my area that were looking to hire or just looking to give out advice and tips. So that was very beneficial. So since then, it's just been a really great opportunity and experience for me.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I can say the same. I'm actually coming newly into the profession, and everybody's been really warm and welcoming. So definitely a very special association and group of people.
Yes, definitely.
And on a second note on that, so how was the annual conference recently? And was that was your first time attending? Is that correct?
Yeah, so that was my first conference. I loved it. It was awesome. I had a really great time. I learned so much. I actually really enjoyed going to the continuing ed courses. That was really fun for me. And then just getting to socialize and network and meet the vendors and meet other funeral directors throughout the state. That was really awesome.
And which one of the speakers was your favorite?
I really loved Amy Cunningham. She presented on natural burials. She's fabulous. I went up to her at the end and I was like, I just want to tell you you're fabulous. I love you. Like, this was amazing. Thank you so much for this. So I really enjoyed her presentation, and I enjoyed Monica Torres as well.
Monica was giving some very valuable information, as everybody was.
Yes.
Now, what did you hear? What kind of feedback did you hear from the other students that were attending, and what were the takeaways kind of for the whole experience for them?
From what I've heard from them, they had a really amazing time. They were all super gracious for the opportunity. We were actually able to take one of the students that was in a very unhealthy work environment and find her a better match and a better funeral home to transition to, which was a very big success for us. We're very excited about that. And yeah, I think they were really grateful for the opportunity, and they really enjoyed going and meeting funeral directors and walking around and seeing all the vendor booths and talking to each other. I think that was a really big thing. Students now, most of the programs are fully online, so they're not interacting with each other very much. There was one group that did work all together face to face, so that was really beneficial for them. But there were a couple other students in Florida that they'd never met any of their classmates. They'd never gone to campus before. Everything was online. So they were really missing that connection and that bonding moment where they could just like let loose and just vent and say, oh my gosh, yes, you're struggling with that too. I am. Like, oh my gosh, wow. So that was really awesome to see. I really enjoyed seeing that because those kind of connections are very important. I think peer relationships are important, especially in mortuary school, because I still keep in touch with most of my classmates, and we kind of just check in and say, hey, like, how much are you making? What are they making you do? Like, am I being taken advantage of? So I think those relationships are very important to make and keep throughout your career in this field.
Yeah, I think that peer-to-peer support is very important because you're new in the workforce as well. And so are the classes continuing to be online, or are they going back to in person anytime soon?
From my understanding, they're continuing to be online. My program was, I started in 2020, in the fall of 2020, so they had never been online before. So we were kind of like the test rats for that, of how that was going to go. So that's transitioned to being fully online except for our labs. And then from the other colleges, they are all online except for labs, I believe. And I think one of them actually has online labs as well, which is very interesting to me. But yeah.
So does that mean that the student classes are larger because they're online? Are they accepting more students?
I I don't know. I think after my class graduated at my school, I think the incoming class was a lot bigger. They had more applicants, I think, due to it being fully online because it's more flexible. If you have a job or kids, it's definitely easier. So there's definitely been an influx of applications because I think probably because it's online.
Okay, well, that's a positive and a negative, right? A little less bonding going on, but maybe bringing more people into the profession. So that's good because it's needed, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
And so who do you look up to in the profession, and have you had any mentors or people who inspire you?
Yes, I definitely have a couple. One of them being Monica Torres, who I got to meet and talk to for a very long time at the conference. She is such a big inspiration for me just because I think she's a great example of women in this profession making a difference and standing up for themselves and just changing how things kind of used to be and how they used to be perceived by the men in this profession. So she's very inspiring to me for that and the way she educates the public. She does it in a very amazing way. And then I have a mutual who makes videos and makes TikToks and things like that named Eileen Hollis. She works in Syracuse, New York at Hollis Funeral Home, which is her dad's funeral home, and then she's going to take it over. But she's amazing. I absolutely love her. She's like such a bright light in our profession. She's gotten so much like coverage, which I think is absolutely beautiful. And she handles it in such a great way. And she really approaches topics and questions that people ask that are really difficult to stomach and difficult to have. But she is just so like bubbly and bright. And she just makes you like enjoy talking about those things, which I think is very important for the public that isn't surrounded by this. So she's definitely a confidant of mine, and I message her all the time and I'm like, well, what would you do in this situation? What do you think about this? And then she's just very amazing. I love her. But yeah, so some really great women to look up to, which has been helpful for me.
So a question that just came to mind, with so many women coming into the profession, how could men in the profession support women? Do you have any tips for them?
Yeah, I think one thing that I always told myself is that there is enough room for everybody to grow and there's enough room for everybody to celebrate and have accomplishments. And I think that's very important. I think sometimes people can get just like uncomfortable seeing other people get celebrated or seeing other people accomplish amazing things. And I think that might be hard for men right now to see an influx of women kind of taking over. But again, like there's so much room for everybody to do amazing things and take over and, that kind of thing. So I think just realizing that this is happening and this is changing and it's not just going to be all men at these conferences or at these meetings or on these boards. There's going to be a lot more women coming in and kind of establishing themselves and taking over. I think that's just a big mind change that they have to make, but it's really awesome to see as a young woman. I think that's really inspiring, but it's definitely kind of scary because it seems like sometimes certain people are still like stuck in that sense, and they're like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? What? But yeah, I think it's been great to kind of see a switch. And I've worked with some really incredible men, like not saying all men in the profession are bad or whatever, that have a lot of female coworkers or own a funeral home and their staff is mainly females, and they are really amazing people and they respect women and let them kind of take charge without belittling them and saying, well, she's bossy because she does this, or things like that, like calling us names just for being like powerful and standing up for ourselves. I think that's really awesome to watch.
So it sounds like over the next few years, the profession as a whole will need to figure out a way to kind of merge, because there's strengths in everybody, and then families will receive, they already do receive excellent care, but bringing all of those skill sets and everybody being on the same page will probably make the experience very even better for families.
Yeah, I agree. Yes.
Now, so kind of going on from that is, what are some of the challenges that new graduates are up against as they join the workforce? Are there any sort of professional things that you hear are challenging?
I think for the most part, the biggest challenge right now is finding a place to work that matches what you need and what you need from it. Like, that's a healthy work environment for you. Some people have certain things that they believe that aren't healthy or are healthy, and I think matching that and finding a good environment for you to work in is very important, because people always joke that, oh, people in the death care profession, they're never going to struggle to find jobs. Like, there's always going to be work for them. You know, people are always going to die. It's the same with healthcare, but that's true. However, I think it's getting harder to find jobs that are healthier for people and that actually like benefit them more than just going to work and clocking in. I think that's really difficult for some people, and I've met and talked to so many people that are like miserable at their jobs, and they don't want to be there anymore because they are miserable and that sort of stuff. So I think finding a good environment for you is really important, and just figuring out what you want and what you need and what you won't put up with, and setting up healthy boundaries for yourself in the work environment is important.
So when you say a healthy work environment, are you referring to, I mean, would the schedule be difficult? What could somebody do to provide a healthy work environment?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially older people right now in this field, they kind of feel like, well, this is what I did when I was in your shoes at your age. So this is exactly what you're going to do. You're going to go through the same things as me. You're going to work 10 hours a day. You're going to do this. You're going to go home late. You're not going to go to your best friend's graduation or your kids' performances because I didn't get to. And that's kind of not how it is anymore. And no other jobs are doing that, which is the thing. Like, any other job, no one would put up with that. They'd be like, I'm going to go work at this store. Like, I'm going to go, no, this isn't for me. So I think making that shift and realizing, okay, this is not how it is anymore, which is hard. I completely understand that, because like, you went through all these painstaking hours, and now the younger generation is coming in and being like, it's 5:30, I'm going home. Like, I'm sorry, I'm out of here. Like, I'm so sorry. So I think things like that, with like scheduling and expecting them to give more than they need to. Like, we don't need to give you more than we already do, in a sense. So I think understanding that and realizing that is really important for both the new generation and the old, making changes and sacrifices for both of them for the better of their funeral home and their employees is probably the biggest. But yeah.
And change is tough, isn't it?
It is.
Probably not so much for you and your peers, but it's definitely going to be a challenge for people that, like you say, they have built a career and been successful and worked very, very hard. So I think also with the incoming professionals, I don't know if there's a way to be understanding of that, because maybe sometimes you feel like you're on the receiving end, but there's again going to have to be, just as with the male and the female, there's going to have to be understanding on both sides, isn't there? So that everybody can kind of go in the same direction and there's not just friction.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, yeah. And I think it's important for the younger generation to understand that these people have created these businesses and have been so successful. What they're doing works. Like, they are to be taken seriously and respectfully. And I think that's important, like understanding that obviously nobody's gonna like come in and be like, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, you can't tell me what to do. Like, nobody's doing that. But yeah, I think it's very important to respect the older professions and the older professionals in this industry and understand that what they did really hard work, and that's admirable. And I think like give and take where you can and not be like obviously super demanding, but set up like boundaries respectfully and say, I am so happy for you, like I respect you so much, but I just can't like keep doing this, like I can't keep working till 6 o'clock, or you know, whatever it may be in the situation. But yeah, definitely think respect on both ends is very important, because it can get very, you know, unhappy for both people if it's just kind of like headbutting. But
yeah, I think you're right. Understanding, on both sides, most definitely, and hopefully then people can move into more of a mentoring role for some of those of you, coming in. And our last question is, well, again, it's pretty in line with that. So how do you think funeral home owners and managers can best support up and coming professionals?
Yeah, I think kind of to sum all of that up, understand where they're coming from and understand that for the most part, every other field and job and industry right now is sort of shifting in work-life balance and working less and giving their employees more flexibility and more understanding and time off. So realize that and then try to implement that where you can and make yourself, what's the word that I'm trying to think of? Like, make yourself look good and something that people would want to work for, or you know what I mean? Like, make yourself just be more adapting. And yeah, I think that's very important to like give and take where you can, and then like change things if you can, change, like update things or upgrade, and just make yourself look more appealing. There we go. That's the word that I was looking for, appealing. Because if you don't look appealing, then nobody's going to want to work for you. So obviously stick to your roots and stick to what's been working for you, but be open to younger generations' mindsets and what they're expecting and what they're realizing and what they will realize over time, that, hey, I can make just as much money doing this at a different job, at a different place, and realizing that, because there's like, it's never ending. We're never going to not be working. So
So it sounds like the money isn't the main motivator, which I know it isn't for most anybody we would speak to in this profession, but it seems like most definitely that's not the biggest driver.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think being in an environment at a workplace that respects your boundaries and allows you to practice those is really important, and not being at a place where you're miserable but you're making a lot of money. I think people would rather have a better work environment where they can feel confident that they're not getting taken advantage of or anything like that, or they feel respected on both ends. I think that's important.
I think so too. And now, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, Mimi, to reach out, a student, if they want to get in touch with you through the IFDF, how can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Instagram. They can shoot me an email. My email is just mimimythen@gmail.com if they have any inquiries or questions.
Okay, and we'll put some links in the video so that people can reach out to you. And I thank you. I think you are a bright light and you're going to do amazing things.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.